Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Enterprise Dawn, watching the massive alien station grow larger on the main screen. His hands were steady, but his heart was racing. After 300 years of wondering if humans were alone in the universe, they were about to meet their first alien civilization. Distance to the station, Ben? Jake asked his chief engineer. 2,000 kilometers in closing, Captain, Ben Rodriguez replied from his console. Their docking bay is opening for us. Dr. Lisa Harper moved closer to the screen, her eyes wide with excitement. As the ship's top scientist, she had dreamed of this moment her entire life. Look at the size of that thing. It's bigger than any city on Earth. The energy readings are incredible, said Dr. Peter Collins, the mission's historian. Their technology is clearly far beyond ours. Jake nodded, trying to stay calm. Earth had sent their best people on this mission. The Enterprise Dawn carried gifts, scientific data, and hopes for peaceful contact with the Zellari Empire. The aliens had found Earth first, sending a simple message asking for a meeting at this neutral space station. Captain, we're receiving a transmission from the station, reported Amy Chen from the communications station. Put it through, Amy. The screen flickered, and suddenly they were looking at their first alien. The Zellari was tall and thin, with pale blue skin and large dark eyes. When it spoke, the translation device made its voice sound calm and pleasant. Welcome, humans of Earth. I am High Counselor Vext H of the Zellari Empire. We are honored to meet you. Please dock at Bay 7. We have prepared a reception for your delegation. Jake stepped forward. Thank you, High Counselor. I am Captain Jake Morrison. We're grateful for this opportunity to meet. Have been a smile. The pleasure is ours, Captain. We have been watching your species with great interest. Please bring your scientists and diplomats. We have much to discuss. An hour later, Jake led his team through the airlock into the alien station. The gravity felt normal, and the air was breathable, though it smelled strange, like flowers mixed with metal. The corridors were huge, clearly built for beings much larger than humans. High Counselor Vexith waited for them with several other aliens. Up close, Jake could see they were all different species, but they all had the same confident, almost superior expression. Captain Morrison, welcome aboard Station Prime, Vext H said. Allow me to introduce my colleagues. This is Science Director Mothka, Military Advisor Zephyl, and Cultural Specialist Nexstar. Jake introduced his own team. This is Dr. Lisa Harper, our xenobiologist. Dr. Peter Collins, our historian. Engineer Ben Rodriguez, and Communications Officer Amy Chen. Fascinating, said Science Director Mothka, studying the humans with obvious interest. Your species is quite young, isn't it? About 60 years for basic spaceflight, Jake replied. We've only had interstellar capability for the last 20. The aliens exchanged glances. Remarkable speed of development, Nexstar commented. Most species take centuries to reach such levels. They were led to a large conference room with a view of space. The table was enormous, making the humans feel like children. Food and drinks were provided, strange but surprisingly tasty. Tell us about your civilization, Vext H requested. We're always interested in new species. Dr. Collins spoke first, explaining human history, culture, and achievements. The aliens listened politely, occasionally asking questions. They seemed impressed by human art, music, and literature. Your species shows remarkable creativity, Mothka observed. And your technological progress is unusually rapid. Most species take much longer to develop nuclear power, computers, and space travel. Thank you, Jake said, feeling proud. We've always been quick to adapt and learn. Yes, we've noticed this, Vext H said. It's quite unusual. Most civilized species are more measured in their approach to development. Dr. Harper leaned forward. We'd love to learn about your species too. How long have the Zellari been spacefaring? Many thousands of years, Zepho replied casually. Our empire spans over 200 worlds. We've been the dominant power in this region of the galaxy for millennia. That's incredible, Amy Chen said. The knowledge you must have accumulated over such a long time. Indeed, Vext H agreed. We have the advantage of long experience. Which brings us to an important question. Dr. Harper, as a scientist, you must have studied human biology extensively. What is the typical lifespan of your species? Lisa looked surprised by the question. Well, on average, humans live about 70 to 80 years. With good medical care, some reach 100. The room fell silent. The aliens stared at her, their expressions changing from polite interest to something like shock. Did you say 70 to 100 years? Mothka asked slowly. Yes, that's correct, Lisa confirmed. Why do you ask? The aliens began speaking to each other in their own language, their voices rising. Jake couldn't understand the words, but their tone was clear. They were agitated, possibly even excited. Is something wrong? Jake asked. Vexed, turned back to them. And Jake was surprised to see something that looked like amusement in the alien's eyes. Forgive us, Captain. We were just ... surprised. You see, the average Zellery lives about 800 years. Have us reached 1,200 or more? The humans stared at them in shock. 800 years. Jake tried to imagine living that long, seeing that much history. 800 years. Peter Collins whispered. The things you must have seen, the knowledge you must have gained. Yes, Nextar said, and now there was definitely amusement in his voice. We have indeed seen much. We have watched civilizations rise and fall. We have accumulated wisdom over centuries. Which brings us to a rather important point, Vexed H continued. Your species, while certainly energetic and creative, faces a significant limitation. How can beings who live such brief lives possibly understand the complexities of galactic civilization? Jake felt a chill run down his spine. The alien's tone had changed, becoming condescending. I don't understand, Jake said carefully. Captain Morrison, Vexed H said, leaning back in his chair, your entire species are like... What do you call those small insects that live for only a day? Mayflies. You are galactic mayflies. The other aliens made sounds at the translation. Device interpreted as laughter. 70 years, Zeffel said, shaking his head. By the time one of us reaches maturity, we have already lived longer than your entire species can hope to live. Your rapid development makes sense now, Mothka added. You rush through everything because you have so little time. It's like children playing at being adults. Jake felt his face burning with anger, but he forced himself to stay calm. Our lifespan may be shorter, but we've accomplished a great deal. Oh, certainly, Vexith said in a tone that made it clear he thought otherwise. But true wisdom, true understanding comes from experience. How can you possibly understand the long-term consequences of your actions when your entire species lives in the moment? Perhaps Nextar suggested this is why your species develops so quickly. You don't have time to properly consider whether your innovations are wise. Dr. Harper started to speak, but Vexed H held up a hand. Please, Dr. Harper. We don't mean to be unkind. We're simply stating facts. Your species has potential, but you're limited by your brief existence. You cannot possibly compete with species that have centuries to develop wisdom and understanding. What are you suggesting? Jake asked, though he was beginning to suspect he knew. Well, Vexed H said, we believe it would be best for everyone. If humanity accepted a client relationship with the Empire, you would serve as a junior member, handling simple tasks, while the eternal races manage the important decisions. Jake looked at his team. Dr. Harper's face was pale with anger. Ben Rodriguez was clenching his fists. Amy Chen looked like she might cry. Dr. Collins was staring at the table, his face red with humiliation. You want us to be servants? Jake said quietly. Not servants, Vexed H corrected. Junior partners? Think of it as an apprenticeship. Perhaps in a few thousand years, when your species has had time to mature, we can discuss full membership in galactic civilization. The aliens laughed again, the sound echoing through the conference room like a mockery of human ambition. Jake Morrison had never felt so small in his entire life. 3 days had passed since the humiliating first meeting with the Zelari. Captain Jake Morrison sat in his quarters aboard the Enterprise Dawn, staring at the diplomatic reports he was supposed to send back to Earth. How could he tell them that, Humanity's first contact with aliens had resulted in being treated like children. A soft knock on his door interrupted his thoughts. "Come in." Dr. Lisa Harper entered, carrying a datapad and looking determined. "Jake, we need to talk. This is about the negotiations, Lisa. There's not much to discuss. They've made their position clear." "That's exactly what I want to talk about." Lisa sat down across from him. "Something doesn't add up about these Zelari. I've been going over the biological scans they allowed us to take, and there are inconsistencies." Jake looked up with interest. "What kind of inconsistencies?" "Cellular structure shows signs of extensive genetic modification. Not natural evolution, but deliberate alteration. And their brain scans show unusual patterns I've never seen before." Before Jake could respond, Amy Chen's voice came over the communications system. "Captain High Counselor Vext H is requesting another meeting with our delegation. He says they want to discuss the details of our client relationship." Jake sighed. "Tell him we'll be there in an hour, Amy." "Actually, Captain," Lisa said, "I have an idea. What if we split up? You and Dr. Collins go to the official meeting and keep them busy. Meanwhile, Amy, Ben, and I can do some investigating on our own." Jake raised an eyebrow. "Investigating what?" "The station's database, their medical records, anything we can access. These aliens are hiding something. I can feel it." An hour later, Jake and Dr. Collins sat in the same conference room, listening to Vexith explain how humanity would fit into the Zelari Empire. The aliens spoke in the same condescending tone, treating them like children who needed guidance. "Your species will be perfect for mining operations," Vext H was saying. "Your short lifespans mean you won't get bored with repetitive work. And your small size makes you ideal for working in tight spaces." Dr. Collins shifted uncomfortably. "High Counselor, surely you can see that humans have more to offer than just manual labor. Our creativity, our adaptability—" Yes, Zafel interrupted. "Very charming qualities. But creativity without wisdom is dangerous. Better to leave the important thinking to those of us who have centuries of experience." Meanwhile, in another part of the station, Dr. Harper was working with Amy Chen to access the Zelari computer systems. Ben Rodriguez kept watch while they worked. "Their security is surprisingly weak," Amy whispered as her fingers flew over the alien keyboard. "For such an advanced civilization, you'd think they'd have better protection." "Maybe they're just overconfident," Lisa replied, studying the biological data on her screen. "Amy, can you find their population records? I want to see their demographic data." "It's working on it," Amy said. "Got it. It's pulling up population statistics for the last 1,000 years." Lisa studied the numbers, her frown deepening. "This is strange. Look at this pattern. Every few hundred years, there's a massive drop in population, followed by a gradual recovery." "Maybe wars?" Ben suggested. "No, the military records don't show any major conflicts during those periods. And look at this. The population drops always affect the older age groups first." Amy continued digging through the files. "Lisa, you need to see this. I found encrypted communications between Zelari officials. The translation software is struggling with it, but I'm getting fragments." Lisa read over Amy's shoulder. The translated text was confusing, but certain phrases stood out. "The Great Dying," memory gaps, treatment failures, and genetic breakdown. "Can you get more of this?" Lisa asked. "I'm trying, but their encryption is getting stronger." "Wait, here's something else." Medical records from their central hospital. The records showed thousands of Zelari patients with similar symptoms. Memory loss, reduced cognitive function, and something called neural calcification. The dates on the records spanned several centuries. "Ben, are you getting this?" Lisa whispered. "Every word," Ben replied, still watching the corridor. "But what does it mean?" "I'm not sure yet, but I think these aliens aren't as healthy as they pretend to be." Back in the conference room, Jake was growing tired of the aliens' arrogance. Vexith had spent the last hour explaining how humans would be assigned simple tasks appropriate for their limited lifespans. "You speak of our limitations," Jake said finally, "but I'm curious about your own civilization. With such long lifespans, you must have incredible technological advancement." "Naturally," Mothka replied. "We have perfected our society over millennia." "Then why?" Dr. Collins asked carefully. "Do your recent innovations seem so limited?" From what we've observed, most of your technology appears to be several centuries old. The aliens exchanged glances. Jake noticed a flicker of something. Annoyance, fear, crossed Vex's face. Our technology is stable, Nexstar said stiffly. We have reached a point of perfection that requires no further change. Perfection? Jake asked. That's interesting. In human society, we believe there's always room for improvement. That is because you are young, Vex replied. When you have lived as long as we have, you understand that some things should not be changed. Meanwhile, Dr. Harper was making a breakthrough. Deep in the Zelari medical files, she found research papers written in an older version of their language. Amy's translation software was having trouble, but Lisa could make out enough to understand the basics. Amy, Ben, look at this, she whispered excitedly. These research papers are from about 2,000 years ago. They're about something called life extension technology. What kind of technology? Ben asked. Genetic modification, cellular regeneration, neural enhancement. According to this, the Zelari weren't naturally long-lived. They developed artificial methods to extend their lifespans. Amy stopped typing and stared at Lisa. Are you saying they're not naturally 800 years old? It's exactly what I'm saying. And there's more. These papers mention side effects, reduced adaptability, decreased creativity, and something called cognitive rigidity. Ben frowned. Cognitive rigidity? It means their brains become less flexible over time. They lose the ability to think in new ways or adapt to change. Amy's eyes widened. That would explain why their technology seems so old. They literally can't innovate anymore. Why they're so stuck in their ways, Lisa added. Their extended lifespans didn't make them wiser, they made them more stubborn. But why would they hide this? Ben asked. Before Lisa could answer, Amy's computer chimed with an alert. Someone's trying to trace our access, she said urgently. We need to go. They quickly gathered their data and headed back to the Enterprise Dawn. Lisa's mind was racing with possibilities. If she was right, the Zelari Empire's greatest strength was actually their greatest weakness. Back in his quarters later that evening, Jake listened to his team's report with growing amazement.
You're
telling me, he said slowly, that these aliens who claim to be superior because of their long lifespans are actually using artificial technology to extend their lives? And that technology is making them less creative and adaptable over time? Lisa confirmed. Jake, I think we've stumbled onto something huge. Question is, what do we do with this information? Dr. Collins asked. Amy looked up from her computer. Captain, I intercepted another communication. The Zelari leadership is divided. There's a faction that wants to study us further, and another that wants to suppress our development entirely. Suppress us? Jake asked. Why? I think, Lisa said quietly, because we represent everything they've lost. We're creative, adaptable, and innovative precisely because our lives are short. We can't afford to be set in our ways. Ben nodded. And if other civilizations figure out that long life isn't necessarily better, it could threaten the entire basis of Zelari's superiority. Jake stood up and paced to the window, looking out at the alien station. So what you're telling me is that the thing they mock us for, our short lifespans, might actually be our greatest advantage. It's exactly what I'm saying, Lisa replied. The question is, how do we prove it? Jake turned back to his team, and for the first time since arriving at the station, he smiled. I think I have an idea. But first we need more evidence. Lisa, can you dig deeper into their medical records? Already planning on it, she said. Amy, keep monitoring their communications. I want to know what they're really saying about us. Yes, sir. And Ben, I want you to study their technology more closely. If Lisa is right about their inability to innovate, there should be evidence in their engineering. As his team dispersed to their tasks, Jake felt a spark of hope. Maybe humanity wasn't as helpless as the Zelari believed. Maybe their brief lifespans weren't a weakness after all. Dr. Lisa Harper worked through the night, her eyes burning from staring at the computer screen. The Zelari genetic data was complex, but she was beginning to understand the horrible truth behind their long lifespans. Every piece of evidence pointed to the same shocking conclusion. Ben, come look at this, she called to Engineer Rodriguez, who was studying Zellery technology specifications at another workstation. Ben walked over, rubbing his tired eyes. What did you find? Lisa pointed to a series of genetic markers on her screen. These are the Zellar DNA samples we collected during the medical examinations. Look at chromosome sequence 47. Ben squinted at the display. I'm not a biologist. Lisa, what am I looking at? Artificial genetic markers, Lisa explained. These sequences don't occur naturally. They're engineered. And see these protein structures? They're designed to prevent normal cellular aging. So they really are using technology to extend their lives? More than that, Lisa said grimly. They're using multiple technologies: genetic modification, nanotechnology, and some kind of neural enhancement. But Ben, look at the side effects. Data. She pulled up another screen showing brain scans of elderly Zelari. Their neural pathways become rigid over time. The same technology that keeps their bodies alive is slowly killing their ability to think creatively. Ben studied the brain scans. Even without medical training, he could see the difference between young and old Zelari brains. The older brains showed thick, inflexible neural connections, while the younger ones looked more like human brains.
Ow!
Long does this process take? Ben asked. Based on these scans, significant neural rigidity begins around age 300. By age 500, most creative thinking ability is gone. By age 700, they can barely adapt to new situations at all. That explains a lot, Ben said. Their technology really is centuries old. They physically can't innovate anymore. Meanwhile, Amy Chen was in her quarters working on decoding more Zelari communications. She had become quite good at understanding their encryption methods, and what she was discovering made her stomach turn. Captain Morrison to the bridge, she called. Over the communications system. I need to show you something urgent. Jake arrived within minutes, followed by Dr. Collins. Amy's face was pale with worry. Captain, I've been monitoring high-level Zelari communications. They're planning something, and it's not good for humanity. What kind of something? Jake asked. Amy pulled up the translated messages on the main screen. There are two factions in the Zelari government. The first group, led by Vexith, wants to keep us as client species. But the second group thinks we're too dangerous to be allowed to develop further. Dr. Collins leaned forward. Dangerous?
How are we dangerous?
Because we represent everything they've lost, Amy replied. Our creativity, our adaptability, our rapid innovation. If other species in the galaxy realize that short lifespans might actually be better for technological and social development, it could destroy the entire basis of Zelari authority. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. What are they planning to do about it? The second faction wants to destroy Earth, Amy said quietly. They're calling it a preventive measure to protect galactic stability. The bridge fell silent. Jake stared at the alien messages, trying to process what Amy had just told him. How long do we have? He asked. The debate is still ongoing, but the second faction is gaining support. Captain, there's something else. They're not just worried about us. They're terrified. Terrified of what? Me highlighted another section. Of the communications. They've been studying human history, our rate of technological development, our social evolution. In the past 100 years, we've gone from horse-drawn carriages to space travel. They've calculated that at our current rate of progress, we'll surpass their technology within 200 years. Dr. Collins whistled softly. 200 years. That's nothing to them. Exactly, Amy confirmed. To beings who live 800 years, 200 years is like tomorrow. They're watching us develop at a speed that terrifies them. Jake activated the ship's communications system. All senior staff to conference room 1. Emergency meeting. 20 minutes later, the entire team was gathered around the conference table. Dr. Harper presented her biological findings while Amy shared the intelligence she had gathered from the communications. So let me understand this, Jake said when they finished. The Zelari have artificially extended their lifespans, but in doing so, they've made themselves unable to innovate or adapt. And now they're so threatened by human creativity and development speed that some of them want to destroy Earth entirely. That's correct, Lisa confirmed, and it gets worse. I found historical records showing that the Zalari Empire has been in decline for over 500 years. They've been maintaining their power through intimidation and the momentum of past achievements, not through continued innovation. Ben pulled up technical specifications on his tablet. The engineering data supports this. Their ships, their stations, their technology, it's all based on designs that are centuries old. There's been no meaningful innovation in their civilization for longer than all of recorded human history. Dr. Collins shook his head in amazement. They've traded their future for longevity. They can live for centuries, but they can't grow or change. And that's why they're so desperate to control other species, Lisa added. They need younger civilizations to do the thinking they can no longer do themselves. Amy looked up from her computer. Captain, I'm detecting increased activity in the Zalari communication networks. I think they're reaching a decision about what to do with us. Jake stood up and paced to the window. Outside, he could see Zalari's ships moving into new formations around the station. How many ships do they have out there? 12 combat vessels that I can detect, Ben replied. All of them significantly larger and more heavily armed than the Enterprise Dawn.
Oh.
But remember, Lisa said, those ships are operated by beings whose brains are centuries old. They can't adapt to new tactics or unexpected situations. Jake turned back to his team. Are you suggesting we fight them? I'm suggesting we outthink them, Lisa replied. Captain, we have something they lost long ago, the ability to think creatively under pressure, can come up with solutions they would never consider. Dr. Collins was studying the historical data on his tablet. Lisa's right. Look at this pattern. Every time the Zalari have faced a crisis in the past few centuries, they've responded with the same basic strategies. They're literally incapable of thinking outside their established patterns. Amy's computer chimed with an urgent alert. Captain, incoming message from High Counselor Vexed H, requesting an immediate meeting with you alone. Just me? Asked, yes, sir. He says it's about humanity's final status in the Empire. Jake looked at his team. I think we all know what that means. They've made their decision. Captain, Lisa said urgently, before you go, there's one more thing you need to know. I found records of another species that challenged Zalari authority about 300 years ago. They were called the Kethrin. What happened to them? Lisa's expression was grim. Their homeworld was destroyed in what the Zalari called a regrettable accident. The entire species was wiped out. Jake felt his blood run cold. They've done this before. It's multiple times, according to the records I found. Any species that shows too much independence or innovation gets eliminated. Amy looked up from her communications console. Captain Vexeth is getting impatient. He's threatening to send security to escort you to the meeting. Jake straightened his uniform and checked his sidearm. All right, I'll go, but I want everyone ready for anything. Amy, keep monitoring their communications. Lisa, Ben, keep analyzing their technology for weaknesses. Dr. Collins, see if you can find more information about the species they've destroyed. What are you planning to do, Captain? Ben asked. Jake smiled, and for the first time in days, it was a genuine smile. I'm going to do something they won't expect. I'm going to tell them the truth. As Jake left for his meeting with the Zalari, Dr. Harper turned back to her computer screen. The genetic data was clear. The Zalari had sacrificed everything that made them truly alive in exchange for merely existing longer. They had become prisoners of their own longevity. Amy, she said quietly, how long before their military reaches Earth, if they decide to attack? Amy ran some calculations. At their current technology level, about 6 months. Then we have 6 months to save our entire species, Lisa said. No pressure at all, Ben muttered, but he was already back at his workstation, looking for weaknesses in Zalari ship designs. Dr. Collins looked up from the historical records. You know what's ironic? They think we're primitive because we only live 70 years. But in those 70 years, we experience more growth, more change, more innovation than they do in 800 years. Lisa nodded. That's exactly what we need to make them understand. Our short lives aren't a weakness. They're what make us truly alive. Captain Jake Morrison walked into the conference room with steady steps, even though his heart was pounding. High Counselor Vexed H sat at the head of the enormous table, flanked by the other Zellery officials. Their faces showed the same arrogant confidence Jake had seen during their first meeting. Captain Morrison Vexeth said without standing, "Please, sit down. We have important matters to discuss." Jake remained standing. "I prefer to stand, thank you. I assume you've reached a decision. About humanity's place in your empire?" "Indeed we have," Science Director Mothka replied. "After careful consideration, we've concluded that your species requires more direct supervision than we initially thought." "What kind of supervision?" Jake asked, though he suspected he already knew. Military advisor Zeffel leaned forward. Species develops too quickly, Captain. You lack the wisdom that comes with age. Left to your own devices, you might make decisions that could harm galactic stability. So we've decided," Vexed H continued, "that Earth will be placed under direct Zelari administration. Your people will be relocated to designated areas where they can be properly guided and supervised." Jake felt his anger rising but kept his voice calm. "You mean you want to put us in camps? Think of them as educational facilities? Cultural?" Specialist Nexstar said smoothly, "where your people can learn proper civilized behavior from their betters." "And if we refuse?" The aliens exchanged glances. Vex's expression hardened. "Captain, surely you understand that refusal is not an option. Your species is young and inexperienced. Cannot possibly know what's best for yourselves." Jake took a deep breath. It was time to play his hand. "High Counselor, before we discuss Earth's future, I'd like to share some interesting discoveries my team has made about Zelari biology." "Your team has been studying us?" Zeffel asked sharply. "As much as you've been studying us," Jake replied. "Fair is fair. Wouldn't you agree?" Vex waved a dismissive hand. "Very well, Captain. What could your primitive science possibly tell us about ourselves that we don't already know?" Jake pulled out a data tablet and placed it on the table. "Dr. Harper has made some fascinating discoveries about your genetic structure. Would you like to see?" Without waiting for an answer, Jake activated the tablet's holographic display. The genetic data appeared in the air above the table, showing the complex modifications in Zelari DNA. "What you're looking at," Jake said, "are artificial genetic markers. Engineered sequences that don't occur naturally. Your species isn't naturally long-lived, is it, High Counselor?" The room fell silent. The aliens stared at the genetic data, their faces showing the first cracks in their confident facade. "This is ridiculous," Mothka said, but her voice lacked conviction. "Our longevity is a natural gift, really?" Jake changed the display to show brain scans. "Then how do you explain the progressive neural calcification that occurs in all Zelari, over 300 years old? The loss of neuroplasticity, the inability to form new neural pathways." Vexed H stood up abruptly. "Where did you get this information?" "Your own medical databases," Jake replied calmly, "along with historical records dating back 2,000 years. Records that show your species originally lived about as long as humans do now." Nexstar was staring at the brain scans with obvious distress. "This data is classified. How did you access it?" "The same way your people have been accessing our data," Jake said. "But let's talk about what this really means. You've traded your ability to grow and change for additional years of life. You can live for centuries, but you can't innovate, can't adapt, can't think creatively." "You're lying," Zeffel said. But his voice was shaking. Jake brought up another display showing technological progression charts. "Your own records prove it. No meaningful innovation in your civilization for over 500 years. Your ships, your weapons, your technology, all based on centuries-old designs. You've become prisoners of your own longevity." Vexed H slammed his hand on the table. "Enough. Even if what you say is true, it changes nothing. We still rule this galaxy." "Do you?" Jake asked. "Or are you just coasting on the achievements of your ancestors?" "When was the last time any of you had a truly original idea?" The aliens looked at each other nervously. Jake could see the doubt in their eyes. "The truth is," Jake continued, "you need younger species to do the thinking you can no longer do. That's why you want to control us. Not because we're inferior, but because we represent everything you've lost. Suddenly, one of the younger Zalari scientists who had been quietly observing spoke up. He's right. Everyone turned to stare at her. She was smaller than the others, with brighter coloring that indicated she was probably less than 200 years old. Kefri, be silent, Vexed H ordered. But Kefri stood up, her voice growing stronger. No, High Counselor, won't be silent anymore. Everything the human says is true. We've been studying his species not because they're primitive, but because they can do things we haven't been able to do for centuries. Sit down, Mothka hissed. I will not, Kefri replied. Do you know what we discovered when we analyzed human technological development? They've made more progress in the last 100 years than we've made in the last 500. Their rate of innovation is increasing while ours has stopped completely. Jake looked at the young alien with surprise and growing respect. You've been studying us? A small group of us have been, Kefri confirmed. Younger Zellery, who still remember what it feels like to have new ideas. We've been watching human civilization with amazement. Your art, your music, your science, everything changes and grows so quickly. Vexit's face was turning darker shades of blue. Kefri. You're speaking of classified research. Research that proves the humans are not our inferiors, she shot back. They're what we used to be before we chose longevity over life. Jake seized the moment. How many of you feel this way? More than you might think, Kefri said, looking directly at the other officials. There's been a growing movement among younger Zalari. We call ourselves the Renewal Faction. We believe our ancestors made a terrible mistake, Trader Zeffel spat. No, Kefri replied firmly. We're the ones trying to save our civilization from its own stagnation. Jake looked around the room. Is this why some of you want to destroy Earth? It's because we remind you of what you've lost? Vexed H remained silent, but his expression was answer enough. Captain Morrison, Kefri said, May I ask you something? In your short lives, do you ever feel ... urgent? Like you must accomplish something important before your time runs out. Jake nodded. Every day. We call it motivation. We had a word for that once, she said sadly. But most of us have forgotten what it means. When you have 800 years, nothing seems urgent. When nothing seems urgent, nothing gets done. This is enough, Vexed H declared. Captain Morrison, regardless of these ... theories.
Fact remains
That humanity will submit to Zellari authority. Actually, Jake said, I don't think it does. He activated his communicator. Dr. Harper, are you monitoring this? Lisa's voice came through clearly. Every word, Captain. And I've got some additional information that might interest everyone. Go ahead, Doctor. We've been analyzing the Zellari military technology. Captain, their ships are powerful, but they're based on designs that are 600 years old. Their tactical systems are completely inflexible. They can only respond to threats in pre-programmed ways. Jake smiled. In other words, they can't adapt to unexpected situations. Exactly. Their neural rigidity extends to their military doctrine. They're physically incapable of developing new strategies. Vexed H was standing now, his hands clenched. You dare threaten us? I'm not threatening anyone, Jake replied. Simply pointing out facts. You want to control humanity because you're afraid of us? You're afraid that other species will realize what we represent, that maybe long life isn't worth the cost you've paid for it? Kefri looked at her colleagues. He's right. We've been living in fear for centuries. Fear that someone would discover our weakness. Fear that our empire would collapse if anyone realized we can't innovate anymore. The empire is strong, Mothka insisted, but her voice lacked conviction. The empire is dying, Kefri countered. And the only way to save it is to admit the truth and find a way to restore what we've lost. Jake looked around the room at the aliens' faces. He could see the conflict in their expressions, centuries of pride warring with growing doubt. There might be another way, he said quietly. Instead of trying to control or destroy humanity, maybe we could work together, your experience combined. With our creativity, your patience with our urgency. Vexith laughed bitterly. You think you can help us? You Mayfly humans? Maybe, Jake said. But first, you'd have to stop thinking of our short lives as a weakness and start recognizing them as a strength. The room fell silent. Jake could feel the weight of the moment. Everything, the future of humanity, the fate of the galaxy, hung in the balance. The silence in the conference room stretched for long moments. Captain Jake Morrison could see the internal struggle playing out on the aliens' faces. Centuries of pride and superiority were crashing against the undeniable truth of their stagnation. Counselor Vext finally spoke, his voice tight with barely controlled anger. Even if what you say is true, Captain, it changes nothing. The Zelari Empire has ruled this galaxy for millennia. We will not be lectured by a species that lives less than a century. But that's exactly the point, Kefri said, stepping forward. Our refusal to listen, to adapt, to change, it's killing us. Look around this room, High Counselor. When was the last time any of us had a truly new idea? Science Director Mothka shifted uncomfortably. New ideas can be dangerous. Stability is more important than change, is it? Jake asked. Dr. Harper, would you join us, please? Dr. Lisa Harper entered the conference room, carrying a data tablet and looking directly at the aliens without fear. Hi, Counselor. I've been studying your medical records more closely. The neural calcification isn't just affecting your creativity, it's accelerating. What do you mean? Vextage demanded. Lisa activated her tablet, showing brain scan comparisons. The deterioration is getting faster with each generation. Zelari, who are 300 years old today, show more neural rigidity than 300-year-olds did a century ago. Your life extension technology is breaking down. The aliens stared at the data in horror. Cultural specialist Nextar's voice was barely a whisper. How long do we have? At the current rate, Lisa said, complete neural calcification will affect your entire species within 200 years. Military advisor Zephyl slammed his fist on the table. Then we must eliminate all threats to our empire before that happens, starting with Earth. That won't solve your problem, Jake said firmly. Destroying us won't restore your ability to innovate. It will just make the galaxy a smaller, more lifeless place. Kefri turned to her fellow Zelari. Don't you see? The humans aren't our enemies. They're our salvation. They can do what we no longer can. They can think in ways we've forgotten how to think. You're suggesting we become dependent on mayflies? Vex H sneered. I'm suggesting we learn from them, Kefri replied, before it's too late. Jake stepped forward. Hi, Counselor. I have a proposal. But first, let me tell you something about human nature that you might not understand. He moved to the large window overlooking space. You see our short lives as a weakness, but every human knows that our time is limited and that knowledge drives everything we do. We don't have the luxury of putting things off for centuries. We have to act, to create, to love, to build, all within the brief span we're given. Dr. Harper joined him at the window. It's that urgency, that knowledge of mortality, is what makes us innovative. We can't afford to be set in our ways because we don't have enough time to waste on old ideas that don't work. Every human child grows up knowing they have to make their life count, Jake continued. We have to pack meaning and achievement into 70 or 80 years. That's why we move fast, why we adapt quickly, why we never stop trying to improve things. Lisa pulled up another display. Hi, Counselor, I think I know how to help your people. The life extension technology doesn't have to be permanent. We could modify it to allow for periodic neural resets, times when the calcification is reversed and creativity is restored. Is that possible? Kefri asked eagerly. With human adaptability and Zelari knowledge working together, yes. You could. Choose when to reset, how often, even how much of your accumulated knowledge to keep. You could have the best of both worlds, long life and the ability to grow and change. Vexed H was shaking his head. You're asking us to give up our immortality. No, Jake said. We're asking you to give up your imprisonment. Amy Chen's voice came through Jake's communicator. Captain, I'm detecting Zelari ships moving into attack. Formation around the station. Looks like someone's made a decision. Jake looked at Vex. Hi, Counselor. The decision was made before this meeting began, Vexith replied coldly. The threat to galactic stability must be eliminated. But Kefri was already moving, speaking rapidly into a communication device. Emergency override code Kefri 7 Alpha. All renewal faction ships implement defensive protocol immediately. Suddenly, alarms began blaring throughout the station. Through the conference room windows, Jake could see alien ships changing course, some moving to attack positions while others moved to intercept them. "What have you done?" Zephyl demanded. "What should have been done centuries ago," Kefri replied. "The Renewal faction has been preparing for this moment. We will not allow the Empire to destroy the very species that could save us." Jake activated his communicator. "Enterprise Dawn, this is the captain. Are you seeing this?" Ben Rodriguez's voice crackled through. "Yes, sir. Looks like we've got a Zellery civil war starting out here." Dr. Harper moved to another console, accessing the station's communication system. "All Zellery personnel, this is Dr. Lisa Harper. Of Earth, I'm transmitting the complete medical data showing the true effects of your life extension technology. The choice is yours, continued stagnation, or the chance to live truly alive lives again." The data flooded the station's networks, reaching every Zellery on the facility. Jake could hear shocked voices echoing through the corridors as centuries of lies were exposed. Mothka stared at her own genetic data on the screen. All this time, we thought we were superior? But we were slowly dying. Not dying, Lisa corrected gently. Just forgetting how to live. McStar looked up from his tablet, where he had been reading the historical records. The species we destroyed. They weren't threats to galactic stability. They were reminders of what we had lost. "And now you have a choice," Jake said. "You can continue down the path of fear and destruction, or you can choose to remember what it means to truly live." Through the windows, they could see the space battle had stopped. Ships from both sides were holding position, the crews apparently too shocked by the revelations to continue fighting. Vexith sat down heavily in his chair. "Looking older than his 800 years? If what you say is true, if we've become prisoners of our own longevity, then what hope do we have?" "The same hope every human has," Jake replied. "The chance to make each day count. The opportunity to grow and change and become something better than what you were yesterday." Kefri was monitoring communications from across the Zellery Empire. "The data is spreading through our entire civilization. Planets are declaring independence from the Central Authority. Young Zellery everywhere are demanding the right to choose their own lifespans." "Chaos," Zephyl muttered. "No," Jake corrected. "Revolution. The chance for your people to remember what it means to be alive." Lisa stepped forward with another proposal. "Hi, Counselor. What if we started with volunteer trials? Zellery who want to try neural reset procedures, working with human scientists, could learn together, develop new technologies that combine the best of both approaches. A partnership between equals," Jake added. "It's not masters and servants, but teachers and students learning from each other." For a long moment, Vex stared out at the stars. Finally, he spoke. "For 800 years I have lived. But looking back, I realize I stopped truly living centuries ago. Perhaps it is time to remember what that feels like." He stood up and extended his hand to Jake. "Captain Morrison, on behalf of those Zellery, wise enough to recognize truth when they hear it, I accept your partnership." Jake shook the alien's hand, feeling the weight of history in that moment. "Welcome to the beginning of your new life. Hi, Counselor." 6 months later, the Enterprise Dawn approached Earth, carrying not just news of successful first contact, but representatives of a transformed Zellery Empire.
Oh.
The galaxy had learned that wisdom didn't come from living longer, but from living fully within whatever time you had. Dr. Harper smiled as she watched Earth grow larger on the screen. They had gone out as explorers and returned as teachers, proving that humanity's greatest strength wasn't in how long they lived, but in how intensely they embraced every moment of the time they were given. In the end, the aliens had mocked human lifespans and discovered something that left them stunned, that true immortality wasn't about extending life, but about making every moment of that life count.